In this video, we're going to be talking all about the YouTube algorithm, what it is, and how it can work for you. Coming up next. Hi everybody, my name is Dee Burks, and this is Retirement Rescue, where we learn how to make money, save money, and live well in retirement. One of those ways you get to live well in retirement is to create a YouTube channel. A lot of people have questions because they hear the word algorithm and they're not quite sure what it is or how it works. Well, I have been working with algorithms for 14 years, y'all. 14. Sounds like a long time. It is a long time. The word algorithm didn't even really creep into our marketing and advertising lexicon until about 2006. Amazon had been around since the very late 90s, and they have always had some sort of algorithm, but it didn't really get talked about until they had been around for a few years. And that was largely in the book world. And of course, I was in the book world. So we started learning how to work with this algorithm. We tried to figure out how we use this algorithm to get books to rank higher on the Amazon bestseller list. And we would run bestseller campaigns and teach authors how to do that. So that was originally why we started trying to figure out those original algorithms. Now back then they were very primitive. They were still sophisticated, but compared to what they are today, they were primitive. So it was a little bit different deal. But the principles that worked then still work now. First of all, let's talk about what an algorithm actually is. An algorithm is basically just a set of instructions that someone gives a computer to problem solve. And what they're problem solving on is consumer behavior. They're figuring out what you do, why you do it, why did you choose this over this, why do you like this better than this, why do you buy from this ad versus this ad. They're constantly problem solving. Algorithms are limited in that they use logic to decide things. Well, guess what's not logical? Human behavior. The least logical thing you can ever base anything on is human behavior. You're trying to figure out someone's behavior based on historical knowledge. Well, like they say in the stock market, past history is not indicative of future behavior. And you can't necessarily make great assumptions based on logic. Logic would tell you, hey, people are going to use the internet to learn things and grow as human beings. But yet, we watch cat videos. That's the humanness that algorithms struggle with. Now, when you think about the YouTube algorithm specifically, and it hasn't been around that long, you can kind of imagine in your mind that the YouTube algorithm is actually a little group of velociraptors. Now, you remember in Jurassic Park where the velociraptors were constantly testing the fence, constantly seeing what would work, what doesn't work. That's what the YouTube algorithm does. It constantly tests videos. It constantly tests content. It's constantly testing human behavior. It's figuring you out, but it can only go so far. Still, it's constantly growing, constantly learning, testing. If you're going to be a YouTube creator, you have to step back and put yourself in the mindset as if you own YouTube. So, I own YouTube. How do I make my money? I make my money through advertising. Those of us who have been in advertising for decades understand how advertising works. And in order to have advertisers buy your advertising, you need to have as pristine a data set about the consumers you're advertising to as possible. You need to know who they are, what their demographics are, what their age is, their race, their buying habits, their viewing habits. You need to know as much about them as possible so your advertisers will have an understanding of what they're buying as far as ads and be willing to put more money into that to have a good return on investment. I've seen a lot of people on YouTube wonder why YouTube doesn't just tell you what is going to be successful. Why don't they just tell you how the algorithm works? That's why. They need a pristine data set. If they published exactly how the algorithm works and what made one video successful over another, they would not get that pristine data set. And they've got to have that for advertisers to have faith in them to put money into advertising. Even if they did tell you this week what worked, doesn't mean that's what's going to work next week. We as humans are constantly changing. Their algorithm is constantly changing. This is why I warn people who watch various YouTube creators that say, oh, the algorithm says A, B, C, and you've got to do X, Y, Z. Number one, they don't know. They can have good guesses, but that guess isn't necessarily going to be valid for a different type of video, a different type of demographic, or even be valid next week because the algorithm has changed by then. So as a YouTube creator, it pays to be very cautious about all the advice you hear. Some of it is good and is valid in a broad sense, but you have to test your own videos on your own channel to see what works for your demographic. One of the great pieces of advice that YouTube creators offer, and I offer it as well, is niche down your market. Figure out who that person watching your videos is. Who are they? What do they want? How can you serve them better? How do you provide value to them? It is not about, hey, I want to create this content. We're just going to, play like it's spaghetti and throw it against the wall and see what sticks. Not so much. Put yourself in the mind of, I own YouTube. What are advertisers going to be interested in? This is why you hear so much conversation about CPM. That is your cost per mil. And that is how much money per 1,000 views a YouTube channel is worth. Some it's $2. Some it's $40. Why the difference? They have very different demographics. And those demographics have advertisers who are willing to invest money. Now, if you've been in advertising for 5 minutes, you understand that companies constantly talk about their cost per customer acquisition. They know how much it costs to get a customer. Now, let's just think about the beauty world. Let's say you have a beauty YouTube channel. In the beauty world, they used to have to have people in stores, and you still see them on occasion, who demonstrate the makeup. It's a one-on-one conversation. They're selling the makeup, and they're giving that feedback back to the company. That was an imperfect system. It was expensive, it was time-consuming, and it wasn't the best data set. Well, now, because of YouTube, a makeup company can buy advertising on a YouTube channel that is showing people how to apply makeup, what makeup is best, how to get the right makeup for their skin type, all of those things, and they can do it instantaneously. Not only that, they have access to millions of people with that specific interest. They don't have to go out and find them. Those people are coming to the platform. And for those makeup companies, that is worth a certain dollar amount. It's probably a much higher dollar amount than just your average teenage blog because they have more money to spend. Same is true for financial companies. Financial companies are interested in certain subsets and certain demographics of people because their cost per acquisition of customer and the amount of money they make per customer is much higher. And so they're willing to spend more for those ads and that advertising. That's why there's such a difference. So when you're looking at starting a YouTube channel or working with the algorithm, take those things into account. You have to really think about who your consumer is. Who is your demographic? How can you serve them the best way possible so they consistently come back and view your content? YouTube advice is just like financial advice. You have to listen to a lot of people, but then look at your own situation. Look at your own demographic. Look at your own channel and what you're providing and figure out what advice applies to you. It's not all going to apply. If you do something just like a big YouTuber, it doesn't mean you're going to be successful. That is not automatic. You have got to think through those deeper ideas and those deeper issues. You've got to go deep and figure out, how do I serve my customer? I love creating on YouTube. I love to be part of the YouTube community. YouTube is a business. Ask Google. They will tell you YouTube's a business. And so you have to understand those business principles and concepts. If you come to the table with marketing and advertising knowledge that you've gained over the last 20 years, that is very applicable to this environment. And you have a leg up over every other YouTuber because you already understand the concepts of consumer behavior and how that consumer behavior translates into dollars for advertisers. As I go along on this channel, I'm going to be testing several things, implementing new strategies based on my own knowledge, and I'll come back every few months and update people on how it went. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and hit the little bell. You'll be notified for new videos. When I do updates on the YouTube channel, you'll be the first to know. See you next video.